The world fears American aircraft carriers. They obsess over nuclear arsenals, count fighter jets, calculate missile ranges. This is what power looks like. Also, everyone believes. But here's a thought experiment. Tonight, every American soldier vanishes. Every ship sinks. Every base crumbles to dust. The most powerful military in human history, gone. You still can't invade. Every war movie, every military documentary, every news report has been showing you the wrong reason America is protected. The Pentagon isn't what keeps you safe. Today, I'm walking you through 7 invisible barriers that make invading the United States not just difficult, but mathematically impossible. And by barrier number 4, you'll understand why 400 million civilians are more terrifying than any standing army on Earth. But this isn't just theory. History already tested this question. And the answer was always the same. Now, a quick note. This analysis is based on publicly available data and historical patterns. It's one perspective on a complex topic, not a definitive prediction. Geopolitical realities can always change. The last time a foreign power seriously attempted to occupy American soil was 1812. The British Empire, the greatest military force on the planet, burned Washington, D.C. to the ground. They captured the Capitol. They stood in the ashes of the White House, and then they left. Not because they were defeated in some glorious battle, because they couldn't stay. Supply lines collapsed. The territory was too vast. The resistance too stubborn. Winning battles meant nothing when you couldn't hold the land. Fast forward to 1941. Japan executes the most successful surprise attack in modern history at Pearl Harbor. They sink battleships. They kill thousands. They achieve complete tactical surprise. And yet, no invasion followed. Japanese military planners calculated the aftermath. They ran the numbers. The math didn't work. Even during the Cold War, declassified Soviet documents reveal something remarkable. The USSR, at the height of its power, with millions of soldiers, never seriously planned a ground invasion of America. They knew better. So let's examine what they understood. Let's run the invasion scenario step by step. You are the general. This is your mission. The first problem you face is getting there. The Atlantic Ocean stretches over 3,000 miles from Europe to America's eastern coast. The Pacific is worse, 5,000 miles from Asia to California. Let's put that in perspective. D-Day, the largest amphibious invasion in human history, required crossing 20 miles of English Channel. 20 miles. And it took 7,000 ships, 11,000 aircraft, and 150,000 troops just to establish a beachhead. For 20 miles, now multiply that by 150. Every soldier in a modern army requires 22 pounds of supplies daily. Food, ammunition, fuel, medical equipment. For 1 million troops, a minimum for any serious invasion, that's 22 million pounds of supplies. Every single day. Across an ocean. For months. Under constant attack. Where are your ports? Where do you refuel? Where do you repair damaged ships when the nearest friendly harbor is 3,000 miles behind you? And here's the thing about 12,383 miles of American coastline. It's the most surveilled water on Earth. Satellite tracking, submarine detection networks, radar installations. You'd be spotted before you're halfway across. But let's say you've solved the impossible. Let's say you've found a way to move an army across an ocean. Where do you land? Maybe you're thinking, land in Canada first, then march south. It's a reasonable idea. Canada shares the longest undefended border in the world with the United States. 5,525 miles. One problem. Canada's entire active military is 70,000 personnel. Their economy is 75% dependent on American trade. The moment you try to use Canada as a staging ground, their economy collapses. Their infrastructure fails. They become a liability, not an asset. You haven't gained a base. You've gained a humanitarian crisis. Fine. March up from Mexico instead. Now you're facing 1,954 miles of the most fortified border in the Western Hemisphere. No infrastructure for military staging. No supply depots. no friendly ports. And Mexico has zero interest in becoming your supply depot or your target. Both neighbors understand something critical. Their survival depends on American stability. Help an invader, and they've signed their own death warrant. But let's say you somehow land. You've crossed the ocean. You've established a beachhead on American soil. Now your problems really begin, because the land itself is designed to kill you. Stand on the western coast and look east. What do you see? The Rocky Mountains, 3,000 miles of stone wall running from Canada to Mexico, peaks reaching 14,000 feet. In winter, passes fill with snow. In summer, they become choke points, narrow corridors where a handful of defenders can hold off an army. Every valley is a potential ambush. Every ridgeline hides a threat. You're not advancing, you're being funneled. Now, imagine you've somehow crossed the Rockies. You've reached the heartland. Look east again. The Appalachian Mountains. Another 1,500 miles of forested ridges stretching from Alabama to Maine. 2,000 miles of trail networks known only to locals. Terrain that swallowed entire regiments in the Civil War. You think you're advancing. The forest thinks otherwise. But what about modern warfare? Drones, missiles, cyber attacks. Drones can strike, but they can't hold territory. Missiles destroy, but they can't occupy. Cyber attacks disrupt, but they can't control land. Every military historian knows the same truth. You need boots on the ground to hold ground. And ground is what kills those boots. But the mountains aren't even the biggest threat. Behind those ranges, hiding in those suburbs, waiting in those farmhouses, something far worse is waiting. Picture a house. Ordinary suburb, ordinary family. A man comes home from work, eats dinner, watches television, completely unremarkable. But in his closet, an AR-15, a handgun, 500 rounds of ammunition, and 20 years of military training from his time in the Marines. This is not unusual in America. This is normal. Now zoom out. That homeowner times 10 million, times 50 million, times 100 million households. There are approximately 393 million firearms in civilian hands in the United States. More guns than people. The largest armed force on Earth isn't a military, it's a population. Every year, Americans purchase nearly 12 billion rounds of ammunition. Basements across the country stockpile thousands of rounds each. And when stores run out, millions of homes have reloading equipment. They make more. But the guns are only half the equation. There are 18.2 million military veterans living in America today. Over 7 million have direct combat experience. They're not concentrated in bases, they're distributed across every state, every county, every small town. Each one knows tactics. Each one can train others. Each one can lead. You're not fighting an army, you're fighting a network. And networks don't have a head you can cut off. Here's the question that should keep every invasion planner awake at night. Who leads this resistance? Everyone. Where's the command structure? Everywhere. When do they stop fighting? Never. Decentralized resistance is virtually unkillable resistance. There's no capital to capture that ends it. No leader to assassinate that stops it. No treaty that binds it. And here's what makes it worse. Even if you win every conventional battle, even if you capture every major city, you haven't won anything. You've inherited the largest guerrilla war in human history. Afghanistan resisted occupation for 20 years with a population of 30 million. America has 330 million, with 10 times the guns, and a century of action movies teaching them exactly how to fight. There's a quote often attributed to Japanese Admiral Yamamoto. Historians debate whether he actually said it, but the truth it contains is undeniable. You cannot invade the mainland United States. There would be a rifle behind every blade of grass. Behind every blade of grass. In every house. On every block. In every small town you've never heard of. Waiting. Let's say you're still committed. You've landed. You've fought through the civilians. You're pushing inland. Now you need to supply your army. Welcome to the logistical black hole. The United States contains 617,000 bridges. Let that number sink in. 617,000. Each one is a potential ambush point. Each one can be destroyed in minutes. One man with explosives can sever your supply line for weeks. Your supply line isn't a line. It's 617,000 potential broken links. And that's just the bridges. There are 140,000 miles of railroad track crisscrossing the country. But here's the problem. They're built for American equipment. American gauge, American locomotives. You can't bring your trains. You can't use theirs, not when every mile of track has been sabotaged, every junction blown, every depot burned. One person with a thermite grenade can stop a trainload of supplies. Then there's fuel. Modern military operations consume oil at staggering rates. The American military alone uses 20 million barrels daily during active combat. Your invading force needs fuel to move, fuel to fight, fuel to survive. But American refineries? They're your first targets, and the first things destroyed in any invasion. You're carrying fuel across oceans, to fuel vehicles, to carry more fuel, to fuel more vehicles. It's a loop that collapses under its own weight. Picture yourself as the general looking at the map. Your supply lines stretch from the coast into the heartland. Every mile they extend, the more exposed they become. The more vulnerable, the more impossible to defend. The math gets worse by the hour. And even if, somehow, the logistics work, there's something you've forgotten. Something that makes all of this pointless. This is the barrier most people never consider. It's not about military power. It's not about geography. It's not about armed civilians. It's about money. And it makes invasion not just pointless, but suicidal. In 1971, Richard Nixon ended the gold standard. The dollar was no longer backed by physical metal. 3 years later, Henry Kissinger negotiated a deal with Saudi Arabia that changed the world. All oil purchases would be conducted in US dollars. The petrodollar was born. Today, over 60% of global foreign exchange reserves are held in American dollars. Central banks from Tokyo to Berlin to Beijing hold trillions in dollar-denominated assets. The entire world economy is built on American currency. Now watch what happens when you attack. The moment bombs fall on American soil, confidence in the dollar evaporates, markets panic, the value plummets, and suddenly, those trillions of dollars your own country holds, they're worth a fraction of what they were yesterday. Your own reserves evaporate. Your own banks fail. Your own economy crumbles. But it gets worse. The SWIFT financial system, the backbone of international money transfers, runs through American infrastructure. 11,000 financial institutions across 200 countries depend on it. Disrupt America, and you've disrupted the entire global financial system, including yours. And those supply chains everyone depends on? Technology, medicine, food production, they all route through American companies, American ports, American systems. Attacking America doesn't hurt America first. It hurts you first. China holds $870 billion in US Treasury bonds. Japan holds $1.1 trillion. Attack America, and you've just burned your own savings to the ground. This is the barrier no army can fight. No strategy can overcome. Invading America isn't war. It's economic suicide. But say you've ignored all of this. You've landed. You've fought. You've somehow won. What now? You've just conquered 50 independent states, each with its own governor, its own national guard, its own legal code, tax system, and bureaucracy. You haven't captured one country. You've captured 50. And it breaks down further. 3,143 counties. Each one its own administrative unit. Each one capable of resisting independently. Capture Washington, D.C.? Congratulations. You control 68 square miles. Meanwhile, 49 governors are organizing resistance from 49 different capitals. There is no single switch that turns off America. There is no surrender that ends the fight. Because there is no central point of failure. Federalism isn't a weakness. It's a feature. And for an invader, it's a nightmare without end. Here's what most people miss. These 7 barriers don't add up. They multiply. The ocean exhausts your supplies, so you have less to fight through the mountains. The mountains trap you, so the civilians have time to organize. The civilians bleed you, so your logistics collapse faster. Your logistics collapse, so you can't sustain the economy. The economy crashes, so you've destroyed your own wealth. Your wealth is gone, so you can't administer what you've conquered. Each barrier makes the next one harder. Each failure compounds the last. It's not 7 problems. It's one impossible equation. Remember the thought experiment? Remove every soldier, sink every ship, dismantle every base. You still have the oceans. You still have the mountains. You still have 400 million armed civilians. You still have the logistical nightmare, the economic suicide pill, the administrative impossibility. The Pentagon isn't what protects America. Geography, economics, and the American population are. The most powerful military on Earth isn't there to fight invasions. It's there so nobody even has to ask the question. And now you understand why.